Hanelle, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
So to start, you had the task of trying kind of wrapping up the acolyte with this last episode, and I think it's really cool that we go back to kind of where this story started. For you as
Mhm.
a director, what was it like getting to put your point, like put your spin on it and your point of view on that specific kind of journey, since you didn't really get to dive into the other elements of it, but you get to wrap this up.
I always love when stories bookend, and what was so great was to work with the production designer and all the thoughts of what does this space look like after all this time. What are the things we want to keep recognizable to the audience? He had this vision of the plant life has invaded it, which I thought was just so great. And then for me, what was really important was the emotion that you felt with every step. And so really choosing some angles and giving JJ that space so that he could relive everything that he went to, and then editorially adding the sounds of what happened there before, just to really to really take you into his headspace, um, and reliving all the emotion and the guilt of what happened there the last time we were in that space, and he was in that space.
Yeah, and I know you've made history as being the first Black female director to direct in both Star Wars and Star Trek. Uh, how is that for you? Are you a nerd? Was that exciting, or were you just kind of like, "This is my job, and I'm telling a story"?
Well, when you get the job, it's just about the telling the story, and
Mhm.
I am a fan, and so absolutely, there was complete excitement about being invited to play in that universe. But I don't think about what's the history that I may be doing when I enter that universe and get that job. That's something that was discovered later. And so it was with Star Trek as well. I did not know that it was history for me to do that pilot. I just knew I was so excited to get that pilot and to dive into that world.
And you get I love the fight sequences that we kind of see on in like it was in the finale. It started the episode before with the Kelnaka fight. And I
Mhm,
really do like how you guys kind of use the levels of this planet to your advantage. Uh
mhm.
how was that like from a directing point of view? Was it daunting to know like, yeah, these people are gonna be flying through the air in slow motion with lightsabers, or was it exciting to kind of navigate how it was gonna work?
Yeah, I mean, that was all part of our creative process of what this fight is going to be. I don't believe it was scripted that he flies through the air. That came through, at least I'm only speaking on my episodes. I don't know what all was part of episode 5, but I do know as a director, you'll see in the script that they have a fight, and there's usually the key emotional beats are scripted, but not the nitty gritty of the fight. That's the thing that you work out with your stunt coordinator and with your second unit director. And really, as you're walking around the space and you're saying, "Ooh, wouldn't it be cool if this happened?" And they had that great bridge set on that big set, and I was like, "Wouldn't it be cool if we can have the fight be here?" And then they fall, and it comes down to the courtyard area. And then the second unit director, who is Chris Cowan, and the stunt coordinator, who is Mark Genter, then they take that and they come up with, okay, we know that's the basic. How do we make that really cool? And so having them fall the way they did and having it be slow motion, that was their pitch for how to make that moment very cool.
But and how do you kind of approach letting characters, like actors, deal with their characters as a director? Because you were mentioning you gave JJ a lot of freedom so he could kind of map out, because this was like a big completion arc for Master of Soul, but also, we have the May Osha and Chimera of it all, and all of those other characters also kind of doing like whatever they need to do in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, he had shot those scenes. They shot that with the second block because episodes 3 and 7 were a block. So he had shot those scenes like so many weeks before he got, and then reshot them for mine. So part of it is just talking through, just, okay, so just a reminder, this is where this happened, this is where this happened, talking him through that stuff really helps to bring them back to when they first shot that scene and helps them tap that. But he's an amazing actor, and he comes in every day with so much already there, And sometimes it's just also a matter of saying, okay, I want to cover it this way so that they know that they're going to put a lot of their heart and soul. They know where the camera is, they know where to direct it, and also to know where not to waste their energy because I'm never going to shoot what they're doing in a certain direction.
Yeah. And you know, I want to call it like the Pride and Prejudice effect, but we got like scraps of this romance happening at the end of this episode, and everyone lost their minds and were like, "Yes, they've touched hands. That's all we needed." Kind of
Hmm.
reaction to it. When you
Hmm.
guys are on set, kind of working on something like that, that it is some fans are going to see it as a romance, others won't. It just depends on like what kind of fan you're talking to. How do you as a director deal with that? Or is it just like not on your radar? You're just trying to like keep the scene as written?
I try to tell the scene the best way I feel it should be told, visually and performance wise. And we felt what was important is to see this connection and that she had embraced this side of her and that they were going on this journey together. And the hand touch was something that was when Manny did it, when he proposed it, it was just like that is what it is. It's exciting. You get a when stuff like that happens, there's an electricity that
Mhm.
just goes through you when there's something that an actor does that's in the moment and it's just right and it's perfect. And that's what happened there.
Yeah, well, and it worked. Um, I loved it a lot, but I also think, you guys get to have these beautiful kind of sweeping shots of like Osha and Chimere on a cliff with like water, or like when they're in the forest, it's so pretty to kind of see the forest, which is also so very Star Wars. How much were you kind of navigating just like the landscapes you were in versus like getting those very Star Wars shots that made the Acolyte so special for someone like me who like I loved the original trilogy and the prequels and everything prior to the Disney era. So to see it again was so cool with the Acolyte.
I guess I'm not quite sure what you mean about navigate. Are you saying logistically or?
Or like, did you guys like, were there certain moments where you were like, yes, this feels like a very Star Wars shot, we should include it? Or did it just kind of with the territory of where you guys were filming that it felt that way?
Oh, okay. So though we shot in Madeira, and really it's just an epic place to shoot because, for instance, where they have that final scene, the way that those big blocky things just
Mhm.
kind of felt Star Warsy, and so that was one reason why we all liked putting it there. It also worked for the visual effect of having some practical set that could then we could add the spaceship parked there. And then what was also great is it allowed me to have a place logistically where I can get the camera and I could go way back and have one of those big epic shots without needing to be on a boat or have to erase buildings. There was just a really good space, and then I love too that, ooh, I can do put it here, and then I can put my little family of Skura in the foreground and have them take us to them walking. So I would say it's all very planned, and it's not so much that we are looking and choosing shots saying this is a Star Wars shot, this is not. It's more we're saying this is the best way. This is such a great epic shot to show where they are, to show what's happening emotionally, and it fits within the vision that we have for Star Wars for this series.
And when now you've directed two things that are known for their spaceships. Do you have a preference though, directing something that is on a spaceship in an episode versus like when you get to use those landscapes to your advantage?
I think it's fun to have both. I don't have a preference. I love being in a practical set, a practical location. It really inspires me as a director. I love walking around and finding stuff. And when you shoot on a spaceship, it's limited. I mean, we can't build the sets as big as we would probably want or as I would want, or there's always like I had a lot of running and but we have very limited number of hallways. So then you're kind of figuring out, okay, how do I do this and cheat this hallway to be, three different hallways and things like that. So but I felt like it also challenges you to find what are interesting angles in the limitations of this set. And that's always good too. Sometimes when you have like any choice, it almost is overwhelming, and it's nice to have some parameters that you have to work within.
Yeah.
But also with the spaceships, when you could be a part of designing them. I was not a part of designing the Star Wars set initially, but what I did do is I wanted the idea of seeing Basil running under the pipe. So I worked, that was one of the things that I worked with our art department and our DP and our lighting department to figure out how can we repurpose, how can we change the set to make that work, because it required pulling out some things, putting lights in, working with James Friend to figure out what would be like the color of it and what would be the speed of it so it could feel like he was down there below running through the pipes.
Uh, I made a big old smile when you mentioned Basil because I love him. I think it's the funniest little thing that came out of this show is a little gopher who tracks things. But when you get to like see the creatures that you're like, okay, well, I have to direct this gopher man thing
Hmm.
running around. How exciting is it to like think of those things where you're like, yeah, he's doing this thing. He's gonna be yelling and running over here.
Yeah, there's a few things you have to think about with Basel specifically because you have the actor that you are talking to who's in the suit, but who also has the physical limitation of that suit. He's not as agile, so we had to adjust some of the blocking that I was thinking about doing because he just physically couldn't do that in the suit. It's also hard for him to see, so you also are directing the puppeteers who are moving his eyes around and the guys who are talking in his ear to say, okay, you have about three more steps and you need to step up, to make sure he can't trip because his eyesight is also limited. So you end up, you have a lot of people who have to come together to make those creatures be so adorable and also, give you some feeling and emotion with Pip as well. As it was really fun working with a puppeteer and watching him do his thing because it's like, okay, I want Pip to feel he's annoyed with her, or he's any feeling I want Pip to do, he's doing it as he's doing doing the robotics to make Pip move around and he's also doing his own beep, 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 like he's doing his own thing. And so it's actually really fun to watch how much acting it happens just with in the puppeteer for the puppeteers do to make these creatures be as lifelike as they are.
Is it more fun that they're actually puppets and puppeteers versus, in the prequels we had CGI Yoda that no one liked. And so everyone was like, bring back the puppet Yoda. We don't want this anymore.
I feel whenever you can have actors working with something that's physically there,
Mhm.
I feel like it's always better. I love as practical as I can get. And I have done stuff in the past where they have to act to a tennis ball and a stick, and they do a great job. But if you can bring someone physically there that they can interact with, I just think it makes it that much more real for them. And so their performance is that much more better.
Yeah. And how is the collaborative process on like a project like Star Wars? Like how much do you get to work kind of with the writers and the actors and the creative team to all kind of bring this vision together versus, you're coming in to direct an episode after other stuff happened, you have to kind of just fit into a mold.
Yeah, I felt like it was very collaborative for me, and I felt like I was part of a team. I never felt like I was given, this is what you're going to do and go do it. It was not like that at all. It was, here is our blueprint, the script that Leslie is doing. Here's how she wants out this world to feel, and then it's working together. Here are my ideas for what we execute. Here are my ideas for what we can adjust or change, or if this story issue is confusing me, then I worry it will confuse the fans. What can we do to make it clearer? So to me, it was always collaborative, and there was a great time in Madeira where Rob Redo and Jason McAuliffe and I we're sitting in the lobby of the hotel figuring out, okay, this space chase. So then what if we do this next? Because I had done a whole storyboard thing, but we had to then go through it together to make sure it all worked. What could be a better way of doing something? What could be an easier way? What could be a cooler way? So we were sitting down there really hammering this out and coming up with ideas together and making adjustments together. And so I thought it was such a collaborative, creative process, and was truly a fun one for me.
And when you get the script that you're writing and you see that you have the cliffhanger of the season that everyone is going to end up talking about the next day, how does it feel as a director to know, like, okay, well, I got to make this look real cool because everyone's going to be talking about the back of Yoda's head for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, you definitely don't want to mess that up. But I would say that, I mean, I felt the pressure for the whole episode. I just didn't want to mess up the whole episode. I read the other scripts and I just really loved what Leslie was doing. And I loved what I had seen of the work that the actors had done. And so I just wanted to make sure I came in with my episodes and didn't mess them up. Whether it was the last moment or the first moment, they all had to live up to the high standards of Star Wars, live up to my own love of the series and of that world. And then, of course, there's just for me, it was just more the giddiness that I get to work with Yoda. So
Like, I get to work with that little green guy. Great, let's go. Uh, did you, having read the episodes and kind of like had that vision of it first, was there an episode that you were like, damn, I wish they asked me to direct this one. I kind of love this one too. Like, I wish I got that as well as the ones I ended up getting.
mm, I tend to fall in love with my episodes. Even I thought that they were all so good, and perhaps I would have like to have done even more action episode 5, but honestly I was thrilled with my episodes because I got a space chase, I got cool fights, and I got like real deep emotional moments. And so to be able to get the finale of any season is always like so cool and an honor, but also to get that the connection between Osha and Kymir, and to get Soul's expression of what all he was feeling. So I was happy with mine. I loved mine. If I can get action and some great character emotional moments, I am in heaven.
Well, and you do also have the I mean, we sing the song now to my cat because it's me and my roommate and then my cat. So we say the one, the two, and then for Benji, because that's his name. But you also get these two sisters kind of coming together and talking about this thing they always said. Can you talk me through the like logistics of filming that? Because I know you had to do like both sides with Amandla at different points.
Hmm. Yeah, that's just about prepping. You have to prep really carefully and get some rehearsal time in so that you can so that both you and her double, who is Shanice, was her acting double, can have time to play and really kind of see how they're going to move through the space. And we weren't able to have access to our location for the last scene with the tree, so we had to mark it off on stage. And we had come up with one version of staging during the rehearsal. And then this was me and Shanice and Amanla and Manny, of course. And then we realized it worked better to switch things around. And so it's just really that's kind of a big part of it, was planning that out. And then figuring out, okay, if this is going to be the blocking, what is the best role for her to start with? What makes the most sense so that she can, if that character is driving the scene, then you sort of want to do her first. If that character is moving around the most, then you want to do that first because that's going to affect every other piece. So sorry, my phone rang and just totally distracted me. But it's really about planning and really working with your cast to also make sure they don't have a certain preference. So if I decide Amala will start as OSHA first, I always check with her to make sure that that also feels right for her because she's doing the heavy lifting. And if she needs to start as May, then we will adjust and make that happen.
Yeah, and you got to direct, I think, one of my favorite little moments because it showed how female rage kind of manifests differently than male rage because everyone like knows that Anakin's anger and like you could see it on his face when he was kind of going in Revenge of the Sith and going to like kill the younglings and like the fight with Obi-Wan. But then when we see Osha's rage and her willingness to kind of like choke out her former master, it is a very different kind of simmer, which I think is such a cool like way of looking at how women differ in how we show our anger. Were there any conversations about how you guys wanted that scene to go, or is that more just like how Amanda wanted to kind of put that anger out into the world?
There were conversations, but Amanla brought a lot to it. And I tend to, I don't direct by saying, this is how I want you to show us this, your rage.
Mm-hmm.
I direct by making sure that, and what's so great is Amanla is always super prepared, right? But just making sure that we are fully aware of all the stakes that are happening and and that I believe it. And by what, not, instead of cutting, going again so that she can keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and tapping whatever she's doing. And then sometimes it's her saying, "Can I go one more time? I want to try something," and letting her have that time and that space to try something different. And so, and then knowing that what I see as affecting me and feels honest and really makes sense for what her character is going through. And so I know that I got it and that I don't need to tell her, now can you do something differently? So I feel like that's how, at least for me, that's how I support my actors who are going through this super emotional thing. And I just want to make sure they have all they need so they can really feel it and have the character drive what that reaction looks like.
Yeah, because it was such a cool scene to kind of watch play out and then like see the comparisons. I was like, this is dope. Uh, but also you get like I love the episode as a whole, but I think it is one of the stronger ones just because there are so many things kind of playing and you jump to the Jedi and then you jump back to this planet that they're on and you're all over the place. Is it jarring for you as a director having to go back and forth between like where the Jedi are versus where they are on this planet? Or is it kind of just like these are the scenes? I'm not gonna think about how I'm now on a completely different like planet with different people who don't know what's going on.
Well, with that one, I would always take all the scenes as one, and I'm
Mhm.
breaking down the Osha and Chimera story. I'm breaking down the May and the Soul story. I'm breaking down the Vanestra and the Jedi investigation. I keep those literally. I do a document where I have those storylines in a row so that I can just read them as that and make sure that then as I'm directing it, the arc makes sense that it's going over their whole thing. And then it's just a matter of say, okay, I'm going to transition. I know I'm transitioning from this scene to this scene. What do I want to do visually to make that transition nice, to make it clear that if there's, make sure it's not confusing, make sure it's jarring. So it's all very planned. I don't find it to be, I find, I mean, to me, that's just part of the game. You're always getting scripts. No script stays with one storyline, right? It's always jumping between multiple A, B, and C storylines. And so you have to separate them out, yet keep track of where they intersect so that you can visually plan how you're going to make those transitions.
Yeah, because I was always like, it's interesting because we get the like, I don't know, the sweep edit like look where it's like, and now you're on Coruscant, and we're like, yeah, we great, we know where we're going now. But like directing it, I was always like, well, how does like your brain kind of wrap around like, all right, well, now I'm on a completely different planet with like different people I have to follow. But for our last question, I mean, like we talked about earlier, there's so many beautiful shots that got like included in this episode. I think there's a pretty do you have one that you were like in the moment, just like this? I'm so proud of this shot. It's so pretty, and I'm so excited it's in a Star Wars.
It was them by the ocean. What was what the reason why that one stands out for me is that the waves were crashing so big. It felt so stormy. It felt like just this wonderful metaphor for everything that she had gone through and was feeling. And so that was the most exciting one for me.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. I love it so much. But thank you so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it. I love this show a lot. I want a season 2 very badly.
Me
But
too.
yeah. Thank you.